Susan's povey huddled in the corner of the cell, knees pulled to my chest, trying to make myself invisible. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the cold concrete, and I tensed. Maria, the prison bully, stopped in front of me. "Hey," she sneered, grabbing my tray out of my hands before I could react. "I think you've been keeping my lunch." I tried to hold on to it, but she yanked it away roughly, sending the food spilling to the floor. "Please, I'm hungry." My voice was barely a whisper. Maria slapped me hard across the face, making my cheeks sting. "Shut up," she growled. "You're lucky I'm just taking your food." Then, she picked up a handful of rocks from the floor and tossed them at my head. Just then, a little boy rushed up and stood in front of me. "Don't bully my mom," he shouted, and I hugged him tightly, feeling a rush of emotion. "Thank you, Justin." Justin was the child of my only friend in prison. She died when giving birth to Justin, so I'd stuck with her son together for 4 years. Maria was about to strike Justin, but just then, a guard's voice cut through the tension. "Susan, Justin, step forward." A guard called, unlocking the cage door. "Stay out of my way next time." Maria spat at me, then turned and walked away. The day had finally come. I clenched my fists in excitement. I walked down the dark, cold corridor, following the guard in front of me, as I ignored the many calls around me. Shouts from the inmates, watching me from within their cells. I didn't care about what they think or say, though. For years living under the same roof as these disgusting people who think me worse than them. Not even the guards did I care about. Not when they view me as the same exact lowlife as the rest of these criminals. Even though I was different. "Here's the exit," the guard said, opening the door in front of us. He turned back to me and undid the cuffs on my wrists. "Better not see you come back here. I'll have you know, we don't do well with repeated criminals." "Whatever you say," I only scoffed, having little to no energy to bother with him. The guard narrowed his eyes in a glare before stepping out of my path, allowing me to leave this prison at last. As I walked past him, though, he placed a hand on my shoulder and stopped me. "Keep in mind, no one gets second chances so easily. Use it well," he advised, and I gave him no response as he removed his hand from me. Once again letting me go, I winced as I stepped into the outside world, the sunlight shining down on me, causing me to raise an arm up to block the sudden brightness. Being stuck in that prison for the past 4 years, the only source of light we've had was the dim lighting of the lamps there. Once my eyes have adjusted to the brightness, I lower my arm and welcome the brighter scenery of the outside world, compared to the dark prison life I was forced to subjugate to. "Whoa," I heard, though not from my mouth, as I looked down at the small figure standing beside me. He who had been the sole reason why I was able to withstand the 4 torturous years here. "What do you think of the outside, Justin?" I asked the child. "It's bright," Justin answered, still in awe. He saw something from the corner of his eyes and, releasing his hand from mine, walked over to it, to the small patch of grass with a few dandelions growing out of it. "Are these the flowers you told me about?" A small smile formed on my face at the question, as I joined him in flower watching. "Yes. These are a special kind of flowers called dandelions," I explained. "Unlike most flowers, this one blooms in 2 stages. Right now, we're looking at the first stage of blooming." Justin's eyes widened at my explanation, his awe growing more. "Wow. Will I be able to see its next blooming stage?" "Yes, of course." Justin looked back up at me and asked, "Where do we go from here?" My heart hurt a bit when he asked that. It wasn't as though I could tell him we would be going home. Not when I no longer have a home. Not with them, that I could still remember it like it was yesterday. How my supposed lovely marriage changed drastically in the 2 years prior to my imprisonment. Particularly, the day I was arrested, I was the wife of our Pax Alpha, Alpha Duncan, and yet I was anything but loved by my husband. Not only did he never look at me as his wife, but ever since his childhood friend, Ashley, returned to Blue Moon Pax several months prior to my arrest, he had been treating her like she was his wife. Not just him, Dylan, our son, looked at Ashley like she was his mother. Me? All I ever get from the 2 who were supposed to be my family were nothing but disdain. It did not help that in the short time she had returned to the pack, Ashley had constantly accused me of things I did not do. Did Duncan listen to me? Sadly, he never did. Especially not after that one incident that led to my arrest. It all happened so fast. What was supposed to be a peaceful birthday celebration turned into a chaotic one when Ashley got poisoned. All blame went straight to me and, without question, Duncan ordered for me to be arrested. Worse, he ordered for me to be beaten and broken. I remembered crying, screaming that I was innocent and had nothing to do with her being poisoned. Yet, neither my own husband nor son believed me. Why? The words Dylan said that day still rang strong and painful in my ears and heart. How could you? How could you do something so evil? You should never have been my mom. I wish Auntie Ashley has always been my mother. Even now, remembering that day, those words hurt. As if that wasn't enough. Once I was sent to prison, not only did the inmates beat and mocked me, the guards also treated me as a being lower than them all. Tormenting me physically, mentally, emotionally. The only person who believed and helped me was a fellow inmate named Julie. She who was convicted of murdering her abusive husband in self-defense. However, because of the reputation he held in the pack, no one believed her when she tried to reveal his true colors. Once he was found dead by her, no further investigation was needed, and she was arrested on the spot for murder. And like me, no one bothered to listen to what she had to say. Perhaps it was because of how similar our situations were that she was the light of my dark tragedy. Unfortunately, she couldn't stay as my light for long, for she had been heavily pregnant with a child at the time of. I didn't know if it was because of the abuse she was forced to endure from her late husband or the stress of living in this prison life, but she died giving birth. To make matters worse, no guard even offered to help with the process. I was the only one who tried to help her get through with it, only for it to be for naught. Before she passed, Julie asked me to take care of her baby, a responsibility that I tearfully accepted, promising to raise him with much love and care. Mommy, are you okay? Justin asked, brushing a hand across my face. It did not take me long to realize the tears that came out of my eyes, reminiscing all the pain that happened that year. I am fine, I assured, wiping the tears away. As for what to do before I could answer his previous question, I saw several cars pull over to the sidewalk and looked at it. My eyes widened and my face paled when the passenger seats opened and a pair of werewolves exited out of it. Rather, a pair of familiar demons. I didn't know whether to be fearful or disgusted to see the two demons of my life before me. They who should have no reason to be here, after making it clear that they don't see me as family. That pain of betrayal was still fresh on my mind as I clenched my fist in silent rage. The sheer disbelief at their accusations of how I poisoned their precious Ashley, adding in how a third party claimed to have seen me prepare the tea for her when I never even touched the pot. How was I supposed to feel breathing the same air as these people who ignored my every word and took faith in all of another's? After everything I did for them, I felt a small hand hold mine and looked down to see a slightly frightened Justin looking up at me. All the rage that built up from the memory of my arrest left in an instant as I laid eyes on him and back at Duncan and Dylan. Calm down, I told myself. There has to be a good reason why they're here. Yes, there has to be a reason for their presence. For after all, they did not see me as family. They did not even visit me once since I was imprisoned. For them to be here now, there has to be a reason. Is it possible? I wondered then as a thought came to mind. Have they realized that I didn't poison Ashley? What do you think you're doing out here, murderer? After how you nearly killed my mom and left her bedridden? Who gave you the right to leave early? How my hopes dashed when I heard those words escape my own son's mouth, complete with the anger he has on his face looking at me. Don't bully Mommy, Justin called out, standing in front of me protectively, touched as I was by his actions. It was Dylan's words that got to me more. Not only did he call me a murderer, Ashley, he called her his mom. Before my arrest, he certainly showed much favor in her over me, but never did he actually call her his mother. Did Duncan marry her while I was in prison, even though we didn't go through any process for a divorce? Granted, I knew he wanted nothing to do with me after what happened. There is a limit to how careless he can be. Dylan glared at Justin and his claim. Who are you calling mommy? I'm her only son, he demanded. I have no energy to deal with either of these monsters, and gently pulled Justin in for a hug. Justin, there's nothing to say to these people, I told him. We're overstaying our welcome. Come on. Halt right there, a cold shout commanded. Just as I was about to walk Justin away from this area, I lightly huffed, not wanting to deal with any more drama with these people. Sadly, not only was one of them my husband, ex-husband, he was also my alpha, and there will be more danger in ignoring an alpha's demands than there is ignoring an abusive, ignorant husband. I looked back at Duncan, watching him glare at me so heavily, seething in rage. You poisoned my beloved, left her bedridden, ruined her health, nearly killed her. She can never go out without those medical equipments like any normal girl can. After you made a mess of her life, you think you can just walk away? A sigh left my lips at the accusation. After all these years, Duncan still believes that I had any part in poisoning Ashley? It almost made me wonder if he even made any effort in finding out exactly what it was that poisoned her. Regardless of what you say, I have already served my time here, I calmly explained. Clearly you don't want me in your presence any longer. Why prolong this? All I spoke there was the truth, and nothing but. Perhaps it was because I was sounding smart, making him look dumb or desperate being in the spot as someone he wants nothing to do with, for Duncan grew enraged by my statements. Don't think that means you're cleared of your crimes. Seize the boy. I paled at the command, as many other werewolves exited out of the other cars and rushed at us. At Justin. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I shouted, as one of them tried to take him away. I pulled Justin back and pushed the wolf away from him, only to be grabbed by two others and be forced down on the ground. Mommy? Justin cried out. Justin. I cried back, trying hard to fight back against these beasts, only to be overpowered by the sheer number that kept me down. Helpless, as I was practically forced to watch my son be kidnapped by my own alpha and husband. To think in the 4 years you would be in there, you would come out with some bastard child? 4 years of imprisonment is far too light if you've gone and let yourself loose on those scums in there. How far you have fallen. Duncan accused. I grew more enraged by his claim. Bad enough he refused to believe me, his own wife. He thought me so low to easily move on and sell myself to men? Furthermore, to think so lowly on a child. I had long since stopped caring what he and Dylan thought of me. It was a different story if Justin gets involved. He is not a bastard or a scum, I shouted. You only have beef with me. Leave Justin out of it. I tried again to free myself from his men's hold, only to be grabbed by the head and have my face be slammed down on the ground. I end my slight daze. Duncan lazily approached me and knelt down with a cruel smirk on his face. So long as you do as I say, nothing will happen to him. He claimed. I was so frustrated with him at this point. Couldn't believe he was so petty to make me so miserable. Even go as far as to get a child involved. Then again, how else would Dylan be so cold to me and fond of Ashley? Finding myself left with no other choice in the matter, I reluctantly closed my eyes and nodded, sealing the deal. I sat in Duncan's car, across from the Alpha and our son. I would have preferred to be with Justin, ensure him that things will be okay. Alas, such was not my decision to make. Just so we are clear, so long as I follow your orders, you won't hurt Justin, right? I questioned. He won't for long if you keep questioning me, Duncan retorted. Yeah, murderer. Dylan supported. I sighed at both their responses, should have expected them. I found myself wondering then how things became this way. How was it that I married this heartless being? That I was in my late teens when we first met, about 18 years old. Back then, I was struggling to make funds for my parents. My father was an omega who could barely make ends meet, and my mother was chronically ill. To support them, I worked multiple part-time jobs growing up, with the best one being the waitress position in our PAC's famous hotel, Light Night. It was at a company event being held there that I met Duncan, who was made newly appointed CEO of the hotel. It was love at first sight back then. His smooth black hair, piercing light green eyes, sharp handsome features. Like any girl, I was immediately smitten by him. At the same time, I knew it wasn't meant to be. We lived in two different worlds, after all. A plain Jane would never get together with someone like him, as I had thought when he came to me one day and asked me to marry him. At first, I was a little doubtful, but my joy of getting this happy marriage outweighed that. If only I had known earlier that this happy marriage was a disguise for the true nightmare behind it. I looked out the window, not wanting to stare at Duncan's face any longer, when I took notice of the road the car was going. "I thought you wanted to bring me to your home. Where are we going?" I questioned, looking around to also notice that this is the only car going down this road. All others that were around us before were nowhere to be seen. I heard Duncan snort as he responded, "You shall see soon enough." I didn't like how he answered that, a terrible feeling crawling down my spine. At some point during the drive, I was baffled to find the car heading straight into a cemetery. I could feel my face turn pale as the terrible feeling well up more in me. So that's it, I thought, rubbing my arms a bit. These people, they have no intention of letting me live. They want me dead, just because Ashley nearly did. The anger I had for them grew once again, as did my disbelief. How could these two be so heartless to not hear me out to the bitter end? How could I let myself believe that they would have no intention of making my life any worse? Mine or Justin's. I could not believe how foolish I had been all this time. A bit more into the drive, and the car stopped at last. The door opened, and the driver grabbed me by the arm, forcing me out of the car and down the grassy hill. I didn't bother fighting this buff guy, given the clear difference in strengths. Not much later, he tossed me down in front of a gravestone. I picked myself up, wanting to at least glare at the werewolf for being so rough on me, when my eyes caught sight of the names on the stones. The two names that meant more to me than anything, as my eyes widened in shock and jaws dropped in sorrow. Ernest Cale's son and Sarah Cale's son, the names of my parents. What is this?" I stuttered out. "What else does it look like?" "Your parents' graves," I heard Duncan answered. I didn't bother turning to him, as I shook my head in disbelief and blinked my eyes to see if I was misreading the names wrong somehow. There was no change in the names. To make matters worse, as I looked at the date of their deaths, my stomach dropped when I saw when it was they died. For the date was the very day I was imprisoned. "You may not have killed my Ashley, but you have killed your parents," Duncan continued, raising my shock. "You are so selfish, thinking about yourself. You don't think about how it affects others. Dylan was right about you being a murderer. You killed your own family, broke their hearts so much they died." I shook my head at his claim, refusing to believe a word as I turned to him in rage. "You're lying. There's no way they could have died," I shouted, recalling the last time I saw my parents, all the times we've had together, despite our struggles. We may be on the poor side of the pack, but we still loved each other very much. I often had to send whatever money I get in my allowances from Duncan to my parents so they can have an easier time living. So Mom's health can improve even if, by a little bit, and Dad can take less shifts to be with her. And yet, you should know especially how hard life is for them, and yet you push them to this? I continued to question Duncan. "My parents did nothing to you. They never even reached out to you since we married. How could you kill them so easily?" "Dad didn't kill them," Dylan interrupted. "Didn't you hear him? You did it. Plus, Dad knows your parents will worry now that they don't have their ATM giving them money. It's only right that those people know what happened to you. It's not his fault they couldn't handle the truth." I didn't think I would get any angrier after being revealed my parents' deaths. To hear that on top of it, I became furious at them. "I don't care what you think of me, but they're still your family," I shouted at Dylan before turning to Duncan. "And you. Those two were innocent. Even if you were in any way concerned about their worries, you couldn't have any heart to send them even a bit of money to them and set their minds at ease. You had to show them proof of my imprisonment. Why?" "Oh, innocent you say? And what about Ashley? She's just as innocent, and yet you decided it was all fine and dandy for you to attempt to kill her," Duncan retorted, increasing my frustration towards him when he mentioned that mistress of his. "So it's always about Ashley, isn't it? You're telling me you killed my frail parents for that witch?" I shouted, glaring at him. Tears started to form in my eyes from all my frustration, as well as the sadness I felt as my family's passing started to sink in. I refused to cry, though, even with these tears trailing down my cheeks. You have robbed me of everything, all for her. What more do you want? Duncan scoffed again at me. And you call me heartless. You are so quick to forget your bastard son. I flinched when he mentioned Justin, hands clenched into fists as I dug a bit of grass and soil in my palms. You want him alive? Do as I say. Change into this, Duncan coldly ordered, tossing a simple maid uniform to me. When you're done, come to the living room. He gave me no change to answer as he walked down the steps and left the attic. I don't want to go through with anything he says. But for Justin's sake, I sighed, reluctantly changing into the uniform. It has not been long since that depressing visit to my parents' grave, and I was dragged back to this mansion without even getting the chance of a proper goodbye to them. Even now, I couldn't believe they were dead, or how heartless both Duncan and Dylan were about their situation. The thought of it made me more worried about Justin, how he was doing right now. If I had known he was this petty, I would have done something to stay in prison longer, I thought then. At least there, the guards and inmates had some heart to not do anything cruel to a child. And yet, this alpha was so petty that he would threaten a young life, just to ruin mine. All for that manipulative mistress. The mere thought of her and what her presence had done to my life made me more frustrated. They say she's suffering, but I bet she's really enjoying my dismay, I bitterly thought. Once I changed into the uniform, I walked right into the living room, where Duncan sat on the sofa with one other individual. Not Dylan, but a certain stunning woman, Ashley. As soon as I had opened the door, both werewolves ceased their little chat and turned to me. I seethed silently at how close they were, and even more so as Ashley grew frightened at the sight of me and threw herself in Duncan's arms. "Oh, Duncan, what is she doing here?" she questioned, her tones so full of drama. "She must be here to ruin me again, Duncan. Please, you have to stop her. Make her leave. Yes, by all means. Dismiss me and Justin from this mansion. Before I actually do hurt her," I bitterly thought, clenching my fists so hard I could feel my nails digging into my palms and drawing blood. A pain that was nothing compared to breathing in the same room as both of these mutts. "Ashley's right. Alpha, what are you thinking?" spat another werewolf in the room. He who stood behind the sofa, on Ashley's side, glaring at me. "Don't tell me you forgot what that vile witch did to her. If it weren't for her, Ashley wouldn't be bedridden." I tried to hold back my own glare, but it was impossible to. Not only our pack's own alpha, but even his beta, Spencer, believes I attempted to kill Ashley without hearing my plea. Not one of you even gave me a chance to speak, I thought, gritting my teeth as I recalled what happened that day. Asterisk flashback, asterisk, it was my birthday that day, and I was at home doing some chores. 2 years into our marriage and Dylan's birth, and I had been hoping to see if there was any change in Duncan's attitude towards me. At least to see me as a person, an equal, anything that he wouldn't brush off when looking at me. Sadly, with Ashley in his life, such a thing was not going to happen, and I knew just doing housework was never enough, and thus did a lot of studying and training to be a proper Luna for the pack. While I was able to get the politics down, there was one thing that was holding me back from my role, my wolf, or lack thereof. When a werewolf was born, so would their wolf, their other, more beastly half. For me, my wolf was just dormant inside of me, making me more human than I should be a werewolf. Because of this, I was more seen as a burden for Duncan. Thanks to my trainer, however, there had been signs of my wolf gradually awakening within me. Supposedly by the coming full moon, which was that very night, I remembered sensing my wolf's awakening, for my body had been feeling different, stronger, and my senses sharper. I couldn't hold in my excitement and, after rushing through all the housework, went into the woods to prepare myself for the transformation to come. When I arrived, I was surprised to see Ashley there as well, looking at me so sweetly. "I had been looking for you," she told me. "Today's my birthday. I was hoping you can make it to my party tonight." My surprise grew at the revelation. I didn't think she would have the same birthday as me. At the same time, it did explain why Duncan didn't even greet me today. if he wanted to celebrate her big day over mine. Likewise, I also found it strange. Given how much Duncan seemed to favor Ashley, I didn't think he would say anything about me to her. Not only that, but if she knew about me, why didn't she say anything to him about spending a bit of time with his own wife? At least on my birthday, if not our anniversary. Every part of my being was telling me to refuse, but a small part that wanted to please Duncan told me to go through with it. Especially as I didn't know what will happen if Ashley told him I refused her invite. How much of a mistake it was when the night of the celebration came. Throughout the night, I had been trying to suppress the pain of my wolf's awakening. It wouldn't do the alpha any good if his Luna had left a party for whatever reason, and if I had bailed on this celebration, I was certain Duncan would be disappointed, knowing I made Ashley sad after inviting me to this. Sadly, I wasn't able to hold it in any longer and snuck out to the nearby woods to complete my wolf's awakening and undergo my very first transformation. I was practically on cloud 9 when the transformation was done and couldn't wait to tell Duncan that my wolf finally awakened. Sadly, when I got back to the party, it was practically in chaos. I squeezed through the crowd to see what happened and was surprised to see Ashley collapsed, a teacup limped from her hand, and a small trail of blood leaking out the corner of her mouth. Most of all, what I was astonished to see was Duncan and Dylan by her side, crying, pleading for her to open her eyes. It was her. A shout then came. She was the one who prepared Ashley's tea. I turned to the source and was in greater stupor to see a maid pointing at me as she made the claim. As if that wasn't bad enough, everyone else who saw her pointing at me all became enraged, accusing me of attempted murder. I tried to explain to them that I was being framed, but no one would lend an ear, and Duncan furiously had me arrested. End of flashback, you stay away from Mom. I heard, feeling a weak push that snapped me out of my thoughts. You hurt her enough. Once again, I felt betrayed, seeing my son side with her instead of his real mother. Now, everyone calm down. Duncan spoke. There's nothing to worry about, a mere servant. Is there? That last part was directed at me, as he smirked at me so cruelly. Not at all, I reluctantly answered, for Justin's life would be in danger otherwise. Good. Now start cleaning the house. Once my new employment was finalized, Duncan and his family left to spend the rest of the day together. While they were gone, he went as far as to give all the other servants in the mansion the day off, leaving me to do all the chores alone. I can't believe this, I thought. Vacuuming the living room, I could have taken this chance to leave the mansion with Justin, if not for two things. One is that I don't know where he is, or if he is even in the building. The other is that I may be watched by one of Duncan's men. He may have dismissed the servants so that I would be doing all the cleaning alone, but would that really mean I was alone? How else would he know if I am actually doing my job and not try to pull any funny business? The thought that an innocent boy in danger both worried and infuriated me. The latter because of how narrow-minded and petty Duncan was. I snapped out of my thoughts when I heard the vacuum sounding a bit different from before. I looked down at the hose and saw something get stuck on it. Turning the machine off, I picked the object off and saw that it was a photo, one that depicted me and Duncan on our wedding. All my anger dissipated when I saw the picture as I sat down on the sofa. How did this happen? I wondered then, thinking back to how we even got married to start with. Flashback, it was one late night at Late Night Hotel. That time was a busy night, and I was called to deliver some dinner for room service to a VIP room. I was a little nervous that night, since it's not every day any server was allowed to give any sort of service in the VIP area. Once I arrived at the room number the meal was to be delivered to, I knocked on the door. Excuse me. Room service to 1214. I have your dinner out here. Would you like me to bring it in? I called, I heard a moan within the room and grew concerned with the sound. I unlocked the door with the key card all the employees have to gain access to the guest rooms, VIP included, and opened it. When I entered the room, the first thing I took notice of was a peculiar smell within. Before I could process what the smell was, though, I was suddenly grabbed, and my lips got slammed by another. I was shocked by the sudden occurrence. Even more so, when I realized who it was kissing me so passionately, as I was then dragged into the room, and was forced to a passionate night. The surprise didn't end there, for the next day, not only was it confirmed that I slept with Duncan, I soon became pregnant with his child. Yes, a scandal did go off from this revelation, until his father, previous alpha, Dingo, revealed that what happened was actually a miracle, for apparently Duncan was cursed by the moon goddess to not have an heir. He didn't go into reason why that came to be, or maybe it was a lie he came up on the fly. Regardless, finalization for the marriage was then made. Though not without a warning from Duncan. "You better not mistaken this," he growled at her at one point, slamming her against a wall, away from the eyes of many. "I'm only going along with the marriage to get that heir. You? I couldn't care less what becomes of you. One way or another, I will see to it that this marriage is broken." End of flashback. Thinking back to that time, I probably should have gone against the marriage as well, if I had known my life would become this big a mess. Not only was I framed for a crime I didn't commit, my own blood thinks low of me, and my parents died thinking I had become a criminal. Calling my life a mess would just be understating it. Ringing entered my ears, bringing me back to reality. I turned to the phone and answered the incoming call. "Hello." With everything that went on earlier, I'd forgotten to get a birthday cake for Ashley. "You better have it ready by the time we get back," came Duncan's voice as he hung up the phone. I was at a loss for words at the command he gave me. It was one thing to tell me to bake or buy a cake. It was another to tell me it was for another girl, even if he did dislike me. A faint sound of thunder reached my ears as I looked out and saw rain clouds gathering. Sure, rain on my parade. Why not? I sarcastically muttered that I wanted to call Duncan back, know exactly where he wanted me to buy that cake, what cake he wanted me to buy exactly, or if he had put an order in. As much as I wanted to ask for these details, I also recognized the risk in merely asking that. The risk being Justin's life. My hand trembled in rage as I slammed the phone back in its place and marched out the mansion. As I walked down the block, my mind once again wandered, recalling the last time my birthday was celebrated after marriage. Only those memories were only of me alone. No Duncan, no Dylan, not even the servants I felt at least a bit close to. I was pretty much isolated from everyone when my married life began. Despite all my efforts to please these people in some way, not once had they seen me as a person till a raindrop hit my face, and a sudden pour began out here, prompting me to let out a sigh. "Of course. Just great," I muttered as I lifted my head, about to make a run to a nearby shop for shelter, when I caught sight of something from a distance. A brunette woman, with familiar features. My eyes widened as I slowly realized exactly who that woman was. The very same one who first accused me of poisoning Ashley. She should know what really happened that day, and yet she still framed me. I thought, as another thought came to mind. She should know what really happened. Who it really was who gave that poison. The woman stopped in her tracks, eyes on me. The smile she had on her face gradually disappeared as she paled with a shocked expression on her face. The look said it all, and I was not going to let it slide. "Hey!" I shouted, running to her, as she turned tail and ran from me. The action fueled my determination, as I was about to shift into my wolf form for additional speed, or so I was about to, when as I crossed the street, I suddenly felt heavy pain from my side, and my body somewhat light. Gravity seemed to have regained its hold on me, and next I knew, I was on the ground, pain shooting throughout my every being, and my vision blurred. My mind and my body all hurt, and my eyes felt heavy. I could faintly see a figure rushing to me, as everything went black. Beep, beep, beep. I woke to the sound of beeping. My body felt so sore and heavy. I struggled just opening my eyes, and as they adjusted to the lighting, I found myself in what seemed to be a hospital room. What? I weakly breathed out. "You're awake." My eyes widened when I heard that voice. Familiar, but in a good way. I turned to the source, and saw a face I never thought I would see again, looking down at me in relief in her blue eyes. "Caitlin? Is that you?" I asked. Caitlin looked at me in sheer joy and caught me in a hug. "Of course, it's me, Susie. I was just passing by when they brought you to the hospital, but what happened? Where have you been these past 4 years?" Feeling her warmth envelope my body, hearing my name called from a tone that is in no way hostile or crude, sensing a concern different from that provided by Justin, from someone who saw me as a friend. Tears formed in my eyes as all those sink in, and I weakly returned the hug. Trust me. It's not like I wanted to disappear these for years, I told her, my voice breaking a bit. Breaking away from the hug, Caitlin helped me up in a sitting position. You need to tell me what happened, Susie. Where have you been all this time? My mood fell when she asked that, as memories of the past 4 years came rushing back to me. If you really want to know, Kate, I was imprisoned. Caitlin's eyes widened by my words, at a loss for words. I am sorry, what? What do you mean you were imprisoned? At her question, I have relayed everything that happened 4 years ago, on the day of my birthday. How I was framed for Ashley's poisoning, labeled as a murderer by my own son, was one-sidedly sent to prison, without a trial, no less, and even about Justin and my parents. As I spoke, Caitlin remained silent, listening to every word. While it was a small act, to me it meant everything. Having someone listen to me, to what occurred that day. The only other person who did that is no longer amongst the living. I warned you about that guy, Caitlin sighed, after I finished retelling everything. I warned you about him, but you were so happy and in love with him that I couldn't dash, I know. I interrupted, my eyes in tears as I recalled the events again. After everything that happened, I had long since decided to live out my life, away from this pack, with Justin. Obviously, I can't do that when he's been abducted by that maniac. I clenched my hand in a fist as I recalled how Justin was taken. How helpless I was to do anything to stop Duncan's men. A hand rested on my shoulder, and I looked up to see Caitlin staring at me with a soft look in her eyes. Hey, it'll be okay. We can get him away. Somehow. That somehow didn't assure me one bit, but I knew Caitlin meant well, and could only respond to the reassurance with a small smile. As I shifted myself on the bed for a better position, a stab of pain shot up on my side, prompting me to rub it and ease the pain. You okay there, Susie? Caitlin asked, helping me ease the pain, somewhat. My healing ability hasn't been as it should have, I answered. Caitlin looked at the state I was in, with a sad expression. Would explain why the doctors needed to give you those bandages, she said. I nodded lightly at the statement, as a thought came to my head. You said you were passing by as I was getting sent here. Who helped me exactly? Before she could give an answer, we both heard the door open and turned to it. Entering the room was a gentleman in a long, auburn leather jacket. His hair sleek, and he had a small beard that gave him much of a mature look. As he approached me with his piercing hazel eyes, I shuddered at his gaze, at the powerful aura that radiated from him. Someone's awake, he said, smiling warmly at me. How are you feeling? I'm fine, thank you, I answered, captivated by his presence. There was something about this man I couldn't place my tongue on. Something similar to Duncan, yet all the more powerful. As Duncan's wife, for the better 2 years of my married life with him, I had met various alphas who all radiate strong, confident leadership aura of various kinds. The one coming from this man, however, felt more powerful than any other. Susie, this is the guy who saved your life, Alpha Polaris, Caitlin introduced. My eyes widened at the name, for there was only one Alpha I was most especially made aware of amongst all others. He who is said to be from the north, and is one of the most powerful and ruthless of them all. Even Duncan shuddered at the thought of ever meeting this man. I had high doubts Caitlin was aware of Polaris's infamous reputation, as she rarely had any interest in politics aside from what goes on in our pack. Otherwise, she wouldn't be introducing the Alpha to me in that friendly manner. I see, I answered with a slight stutter. Thank you for helping me. Polaris waved off my thanks. Please, there's no need for that. I only did what any other would have done. His casual response caught me off guard for a bit, not expecting those words to leave his mouth. You fucking bitch. I jumped when I suddenly heard a shout in my head, alerting Caitlin and Polaris. Susie? What's wrong? Caitlin asked. Did you think me funny? Duncan's voice shouted in my head, preventing me from speaking to my friend. I know I told you to get that cake ready for Ashley. Why are you not here? Sending them an apologetic glance, I returned the mind link. You never said if the cake was ordered or if you wanted me to make it. I assumed the former, and on my way to a bakery, I dash. Are you pushing the blame to me? Duncan interrupted, refusing to listen to reason. I'm not shifting the blame. I'm just saying you didn't say much about the cake. And when I went to a bakery, I saw the maid who framed me and dash. Do you take me for a fool? He interrupted once more. You really think you can bribe anyone into clearing your name? That you can get away from the crime you have committed? It seems I had been lenient, letting you be alone. As today is Ashley's birthday, I will spare you of your punishment for sneaking out. However, you better return quickly with the cake, or a certain little pup will know what it's like to be disabled. My eyes widened in fright at the threat. Don't you dare, I shouted. Look, I'll return to the mansion. Just leave Justin alone. Then you better be quick with that cake. Without another word from him, I felt the mind link end, though not without feeling the frustration for how unreasonable that dreadful alpha has become. Susie, what's wrong? Caitlin asked, snapping me out of my thoughts, as well as making me realize that I was not the only person in the room when I made that outburst. I have to go, I told her, forcing myself off the bed. Caitlin stopped me as she placed her hands on my shoulders and kept me in place. You can't go back to him. You haven't even fully recovered from the accident. Look, just let the doctor call him and explain the situation. You need to file for a divorce and dash, and what? I cut off. Even if I file for a divorce, not only will Duncan not take it, but Justin, who knows what he will do to him. I can't just waste time being here. Caitlin clamped her mouth shut at my outburst, unsure what to say. As I came to realize how I blew up on her, I took a moment to calm myself as best as I could. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shout like that. I apologized. But you have to understand, even if Justin isn't mine, he is all I have left. I clearly can't trust that monster to do nothing to him, even if I do follow his orders. But I have to. He's still my son. It was silent in the room as I pleaded to Caitlin to let me go. With my focus on my best friend, I didn't notice the expression Polaris had as he watched us. Eventually enough, Caitlin sighed.
Fine.
I'll take care of any paperwork for your discharge, she said, to my relief. However, if anything happens, anything at all, do not ever hesitate to let me know. I could only thank her in gratitude and pushed myself up to my feet, wincing at how sore my body felt. I took a few steps forward and nearly fell, had Polaris not caught me. Are you sure you can walk at least? He asked me. I'm fine, I answered, shrugging off his grip. My son is more important, and that deranged alpha will never care of the reason for my lateness, much less my own well-being. Without another word, I pushed myself to walk out of the room. Asterisk, 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 how I quickly came to regret returning to the mansion. Not because my injuries haven't recovered, nor was it because I returned to see my own son being very comfy with Ashley. I gave you one job, and you have failed that terribly. Duncan shouted in rage, kicking me by my sore side, as I laid on the floor of the living room in agony, bleeding from my reopened wounds. I knew he would be upset at me when I come back, even with a cake in hand. However, I did not think he would be so petty as to be so upset that I got the wrong cake from the wrong bakery. Rather, I should have expected this. It's not my fault. You didn't tell me which bakery, I weakly reasoned. Duncan glared at me and gave me another harsh kick, causing me to hiss painfully. You think you can keep giving me excuses? You are nothing more than a criminal scum, he shouted. I had everything perfect and wanted to end this perfect day with that perfect strawberry shortcake from Sweet Sanctum. And now that ending is ruined because of you. Ashley has become saddened she couldn't have that cake because of you. Frustration welled up in me from his excuse. How he blamed me for the night being ruined when he could have either get the cake himself on the way back or told me what cake and bakery he made the order, or even order me to bake it from home. But no. All because he couldn't even give me these important details. He blames me for his plans getting ruined. The only thing I can be happy about with the situation was that neither Ashley nor Dylan were here to watch me get beaten so horribly. Instead, they were in the dining room, having a birthday meal just for that she-wolf. Duncan knelt down and grabbed me by the neck, lifting my limp body up. I won't kill you, as much as I want to. Death will be nothing but an escape for you, he growled. Your boy, on the other hand, I did not like how he trailed off there, especially with the smirk on his face. I fought against all the exhaustion that was in my body, refusing to fall here, and let this wolf do as he pleased to Justin. Sadly, my body refused to listen to my wish. I could barely lift a finger, only glare at this man. Duncan grew disgusted by my glare, as he tossed me back down. And so the filthy criminal thinks she is gutsy enough to glare at me. That whatever control she had in prison extends to out here? He spat on my face, to my own disgust. How disgustingly egotistical you are. My irritation grew with this mistreatment. The threat he is to my missing Justin. Yet, because of the pain I was in, how powerless I was to this alpha, I couldn't do anything. That feeling made me more frustrated. Just then, pounding was heard at the front door, grabbing Duncan's attention. Now who could that be? He wondered out loud. He kicked me away, hiding me as best as possible behind the sofa, and walked to the door. Yes, I'm coming. Once those words left his mouth, to both our surprise, the door was suddenly knocked right off the hinge and fell to the floor. What the hell? He gasped. Using whatever strength I still had, I managed to claw myself out of my hiding spot to get a better look at what was happening at the front door. My eyes widened in stupor at the sight of a familiar face standing out there, amongst a group of many other werewolves. Alpha Duncan, correct? Polaris spoke.